Hey guys, I'm Zapper, the Immortal 3 Yapper. Everyone loved my Valorant movement aiming guide, and today I'm presenting to you part 2. It's similar to Woohoojin's gunfight hygiene, but 10 times better. I'll be combining movement knowledge from previous pro player and Misfit with my extensive aim training prowess to create a masterpiece that will fix your mechanics forever. I hope you enjoy, and make sure to leave any questions or comments down below. So, as a human being, you can have two problems mechanically: your movement and your mouse control. You could have the best movement in the world, and if your mouse control is lacking, you will be held back tremendously. The inverse of this also applies and is actually far more common. With aim trainers being so mainstream nowadays, all players have access to free tools that can quickly improve one's mouse control. The downside to this is many players are left with good mouse control and bad movement. Then when they queue up for ranked, their movement holds them back. They miss their shots and blame their aim. Time to boot up aim labs, they think. And a cycle begins of perpetual mouse control improvement with a stagnation in movement capabilities. Over time, this will pick apart your confidence, because no matter how talented you become at wiggling your mouse around, you will see no progress to your mechanics in the game. This is why movement aiming is the most important skill you can learn. The goal is good aim. And good aim comes from seamlessly combining your movement and your mouse control. Let's use the piano as a lesson here. Think of your left hand as your movement and your right hand as your aim. You can't play a masterpiece on the piano with only one hand, and the better your hands can work in unison, the better you will perform. Better yet, in mastering the skill of movement aiming, you will instantly become more proficient in any other FPS game you decide to pick up in the future. Whether it's Marvel Rivals, COD, CSGO, Overwatch, Apex Legends, Fortnite, you name it. Let's take a look at what Misfit has to say on the topic. Number 1, let your keyboard do the work. It's more consistent to draw a straight line with the keyboard than it is with your mouse. I'm assuming this is because it's a lot smoother and it's a much more consistent speed. It's better to overflick your target and strafe onto the head, and it's the best way to clear angles. One thing I'd like to add here is that although overflicking the target and strafing onto the head is considered better, it's absolutely crucial that you become comfortable with the opposite as well. You won't always be put in a situation where it's reasonable to overflick and strafe. Sometimes the enemy will already be in the current path of your crosshair, and instead of overflicking and changing directions, it saves you tons of time to just continue your movement until the crosshair falls on the target. If the target is far, this means underflicking. Also, when clearing angles, you are definitely not overflicking. You typically pre-aim in such a way that as you peek out, your movement will naturally drop your crosshair on the most likely enemy position. Practice both and use both accordingly. And don't stress about it too much, because once you do it enough times, it will become second nature naturally. It's important to take things one step at a time. I'll be sharing with you guys a super practical routine to get you started, and of course, feel free to modify it in whatever way makes sense to you. Number 2, proportional practice. 97% of your duels in ranked involve movement, so practice it. Only stand still or one tap for 5% of your warm-up, so you are practicing proportionally. Implement a variety of strafes and 2 bullet bursts when counter-strafing. Number 3, instantly stopping when caught off guard. This is typically why you always feel like you get one-tapped. The enemy has crosshair advantage on you, but your crosshair is still way off target. It's important in these situations to keep moving so the enemy has a chance to miss while you're adjusting your aim. This will make you a harder target to hit. Number 4, don't always commit to shallow peeks. Think about it from the enemy's perspective. Their crosshair placement is where you peek. Implement jiggling into your peeks to gather intel and bait out shots, and make sure to wide swing sometimes. It's even better to do this if the enemy has spotted you after they see your jiggle peek. Number 5, stop losing your 1v1 duels. It's just as important making the enemy miss than it is hitting your shots. Mix up your strafes. You have more time to aim than you think. Using wider strafes is going to make you a harder target to hit, and composure is key. Go back and reread everything he said if you need to, because it's all super valuable stuff. If I were to add to this, I'd say it's important to understand the nuance. Most of the time, strafing wider can make you a harder target, but sometimes, and if you strafe for too long, it can actually have the opposite effect. This is why it's so important to mix up not only the direction of your strafes, but the distance of them as well. There will also be times when the enemy tags you with a body shot while you're trying to adjust your crosshair with your movement. This of course slows your movement and can throw off your movement aiming. It's in these moments where it's pivotal to quickly react and use your mouse control to pick up where your movement left off. Situationally, it can also be better to continue your movement despite being slowed. Things like the enemy overcommitting, other distractions on their screen, pressure from other angles, and even if they fall too deep into their gun spray, moving out of the area where you were originally tagged can be very powerful and keep you alive for just long enough to get that extra kill. Even if you only have time to move over a step or two, it can still be huge. Another niche tidbit would be holding angles tighter when strafing to one side. Think of it this way. If your crosshair is in the right position already when they peek, your movement will naturally move it off target as you're reacting to them. Instead, if you hold the crosshair tighter, then as you react to them peeking you, your movement will naturally pull your crosshair right onto them as you stop moving. The inverse also applies here. So if you're moving in the opposite direction to the angle that you're holding, you can have the same effect if you hold the crosshair a little bit wider. This practice also adds utmost importance to keeping your crosshair at head height, because for the most part, your movement can only move your crosshair left and right. As such, in using your movement to assist your aim, you give yourself more freedom to adjust your aim vertically with your mouse when you do need to make those vertical adjustments. Now, I just quickly want to go over my current routine. It's pretty simple and has the primary purpose of developing good habits in the long term. First things first, you want to go into the range and turn on practice bots. From here, you just want to spend 5 to 10 minutes strafing back and forth at various lengths, shooting the bots either with 1 taps or 2 bullet bursts. It's important to train unison between your mouse control and your movement while in this low pressure environment. But if you're like me and your movement is your main issue, it's good to let your movement do most of the work. Still, flick between the targets as you get the kills, but do it in such a way that you can use your movement to ultimately line up the shot in the end. After the range, I go into deathmatch. I prefer regular DMs because I can use the Vandal the whole time, and that's what I'm going to be using 80% of the time in my ranked matches. I'll play TDM on occasion, but the idea is the same. You want to practice the same skills you are working on in the range in the deathmatch. Strafing between your shots, varying your strafe distances, and a strong emphasis on using your movement to line up your crosshair. As you train this more and more, you will notice that you're staying alive longer and that your aim becomes more consistent. And don't get discouraged if you aren't seeing the results you want right away. Learning new things takes time, and as long as you put the right habits in place, you're gonna get better. After that, play a game or two of ranked. And of course, keep dialing in the same habits. I've noticed that good movement aiming is almost more beneficial in the ranked environment because people's nerves get to them. And so if you are the one player who maintains their good movement aiming habits despite the pressure, you can completely clean up shop. And never forget that luck always plays a role. You can do everything right and still lose for things that are completely out of your control. So keep your head up, y'all. You got this. I believe in you.